The rain hammered against the cracked pavement as Monica Pierce hurried through the darkened alley, her worn sneakers splashing through puddles she couldn't avoid. Her shift at the diner had run late again, and the babysitter would charge extra for every minute past midnight. She couldn't afford extra anything, but Mrs. Kowalski was the only person in the neighborhood willing to watch her 6-year-old daughter, Haley, for what Monica could actually pay. The shortcut through the warehouse district shaved 15 minutes off her walk home, though her mother's voice echoed in her head every time she took it. Nothing good happens in dark alleys, Monica. But nothing good had happened to Monica in well-lit places either, so she'd stopped being particular about where she walked. She pulled her thin jacket tighter against the October wind and quickened her pace. That's when she heard it, a sound that didn't belong to the rhythm of rain and distant traffic. A whimper. No, 2 whimpers. High-pitched and terrified. Children. Monica froze, her heart hammering. Every instinct screamed at her to keep walking, to not get involved, to think of Haley waiting at home. But those sounds, they could have been her daughter. She'd heard Haley make those exact noises during thunderstorms, when fear gripped her small body and squeezed out those helpless little cries. She turned toward the sound, peering into the shadowy gap between 2 abandoned warehouses. Her phone's flashlight cut through the darkness, and what she saw made her blood run cold. A man lay slumped against the brick wall, his expensive-looking suit jacket dark with rain and something else, something that glistened red in the pale light, blood. His head lolled to one side, but his arms were wrapped protectively around 2 small children, maybe 3 or 4 years old, identical twins with dark curls plastered to their foreheads. Their small hands clutched at his shirt, and they were shaking. "Oh my God," Monica breathed, rushing forward. She dropped to her knees beside them, her hands hovering uncertainly. The man's eyes were closed, his breathing shallow and labored. The children's eyes, however, were wide open, huge and terrified, staring at her like she might be another monster in their nightmare. "It's okay. It's okay," Monica whispered, though nothing about this was okay. "I'm going to help you." She reached for her phone to call 911, but the little boy, she assumed it was a boy from his blue jacket, grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. "No," he croaked, his voice raw from crying. Bad men come." Monica's stomach dropped. This wasn't an accident. Someone had done this. Someone had shot this man while he held these babies, and those someones might still be nearby. The man's eyes flickered open, just barely. They were gray, she noticed absurdly, gray like storm clouds. He tried to speak, but only managed a wet, rattling sound. His grip on the children tightened even as his strength was clearly failing. "I need to get you help," Monica said firmly, looking at the wound in his shoulder, not his chest, thank God. He might survive this if she acted fast. "I'm calling an ambulance." "No, hospital," the man managed, each word clearly costing him. "They'll find us." "You'll die," Monica said bluntly. She wasn't good at sugarcoating things. Life had beaten that tendency out of her years ago. The man's eyes focused on her face for the first time, really seeing her. Something passed through his gaze, calculation, desperation, and finally, a decision. "Please," he whispered. "The twins." The little girl started crying harder, burying her face in the man's chest. The boy's grip on Monica's wrist tightened. "Daddy," he whimpered. "Daddy, wake up. Daddy." These were his children. This bleeding man was their father. And he was begging her, a complete stranger in a dark alley, to protect them from whoever had put a bullet in his shoulder. Monica had approximately $3 in her bank account, a daughter who needed her, and a life complicated enough without adding a mystery man and his twins to the mix. The smart thing, the sane thing, would be to call 911, wait until help arrived, and then disappear back into the night where she belonged. But she'd never been particularly smart or sane, and she'd never been able to walk away from children in need. "Can you walk?" she asked the man. He nodded, though she doubted it was true. Still, with her help, he managed to stagger to his feet, the children clinging to him like barnacles. Monica wrapped her arm around his waist, taking as much of his weight as her small frame could handle. He was tall, well over 6 feet, and solid with muscle beneath that expensive suit. She could feel the heat of blood soaking into her jacket, warm and terrifying. "My apartment's 6 blocks from here," she said, already regretting this decision but unable to stop making it. "Can you make it?" "Have to," he gritted out. They moved through the rain-slicked streets like a strange, desperate parade. Monica supported the man, who stumbled and swayed with each step. The twins trotted alongside, their small hands clutching at their father's pant legs, silent now except for occasional hiccuping sobs. Every car that passed made Monica's heart jump into her throat. Every shadow looked like it might hide the men who'd done this. By the time they reached her building, a 4-story walk-up in a neighborhood that politely could be called transitional, the man had lost consciousness twice. Monica had slapped his face both times, harder than she meant to, and dragged him forward. The twins had stopped crying entirely, their faces blank with shock. Getting him up 3 flights of stairs was a nightmare. Monica practically carried him, her legs burning, her shoulder screaming where his weight pressed against her old injury from a car accident 2 years ago. When they finally stumbled through her apartment door, Mrs. Kowalski looked up from the couch with wide eyes. "Sweet Jesus, Monica, what—" "I'll pay you double," Monica interrupted, which was laughable since she could barely pay the original amount. "Please don't ask questions. Please just take Haley home and don't tell anyone you saw anything." Mrs. Kowalski was 73 and had survived Soviet Russia before emigrating. She'd seen things. She looked at the bleeding man, at the terrified twins, and at Monica's desperate face. Then she nodded, gathering up a sleepy Haley without a word. "Thank you," Monica breathed. "You're a good girl, Monica," Mrs. Kowalski said quietly. "Too good. It will get you killed one day. Probably," Monica agreed. When they were alone, Monica deposited the man on her threadbare couch. Blood immediately began soaking into the cushions she'd bought at a yard sale. She'd never get that stain out, but that seemed like the least of her problems. The twins stood in the middle of her tiny living room, dripping rainwater onto her laminate floor, looking lost. "Okay," Monica said, more to herself than to them. "Okay, first aid kit. I have a first aid kit." She did have one, a massive thing she'd assembled when Haley was born, terrified that her baby would need medical attention she couldn't afford. Most of it had never been used. She'd never thought she'd be digging a bullet out of a stranger's shoulder in her living room at 1 a.m, but as she knelt beside the man and carefully peeled back his blood-soaked shirt, as the twins climbed onto the couch and pressed themselves against their unconscious father, as the rain continued to hammer against her windows and the night pressed in around them, Monica realized she'd just stepped into something far bigger and more dangerous than she could imagine. The man's wallet had fallen from his pocket. It lay on the floor, expensive leather stark against her cheap carpet. Monica picked it up, her hands shaking. She told herself she was looking for medical information, emergency contacts, anything that might help her keep this man alive. But what she found instead made her forget how to breathe. The driver's license showed his face, younger and smiling. Nothing like the pale, unconscious man bleeding on her couch, but it was the name that stopped her heart. Christopher Thornton Bennett. She knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name. Bennett Industries. Real estate empire. Billions with a B. His face had been on the cover of Forbes 3 months ago. She'd seen it at the grocery store checkout, had thought absently that some people were born lucky while the rest of them scraped by on tips and day-old bread. Christopher Bennett was the 3rd richest man in the state, and he was currently bleeding out on Monica Pierce's second-hand couch while his children watched with eyes too old for their small faces, and someone had tried to kill him. Monica's hands trembled as she set the wallet down, her mind racing through impossible scenarios. Christopher Bennett. The Christopher Bennett. She'd served coffee to janitors who made more money than her, but this man could buy her entire neighborhood without checking his bank balance, and someone wanted him dead. She forced herself to focus. Rich or poor, a bullet wound was a bullet wound, and he'd die on her couch if she didn't do something. Monica had never been squeamish. You couldn't afford to be when you were a single mother working double shifts. But she'd also never done anything like this before. "What's your name?" she asked the little boy softly, trying to keep her voice steady as she gathered supplies from her kit. He stared at her with those enormous gray eyes, so much like his father's. "Austin," he whispered finally. And your sister, Brooklyn. His voice was barely audible. Those are beautiful names, Monica said, laying out bandages, antiseptic, and tweezers with shaking hands. I'm Monica. I'm going to help your daddy, okay? But I need you both to be very brave. Brooklyn whimpered and buried her face against her father's arm. Austin just nodded, his small jaw set with determination that broke Monica's heart. These children had already learned not to cry when they were terrified. They'd learned to be quiet and still when bad things happened. What kind of life had taught them that? The bullet had gone clean through Christopher's shoulder, which was lucky. Monica had seen enough medical dramas to know that. She cleaned the wound as best she could, her stomach churning at the sight of torn flesh and exposed muscle. Christopher groaned, but didn't wake, which was probably for the best. She'd found half a bottle of expired ibuprofen in her medicine cabinet, but that wasn't going to cut it for this kind of pain. Your daddy's going to be fine, she told the twins, hoping it was true. He's very strong. The bad men hurt him, Austin said, his voice flat. They came to our house. They had guns. Monica's hands stilled. Your house? Where's your house, Austin? The big house, with the fountain. He said it like that explained everything. And maybe for a child it did. For a billionaire's child, home was probably wherever the fountain was. Where's your mommy? Monica asked gently, already dreading the answer. Austin and Brooklyn exchanged a glance. One of those silent twin communications that needed no words. Mommy went to heaven, Brooklyn said softly, a long time ago. So Christopher Bennett was a widower, raising twins alone. Monica felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. She knew what it was like to raise a child by yourself, though she imagined he had slightly more resources than her negative bank balance and a drawer full of past due notices. She worked in silence for the next hour, cleaning and bandaging the wound, checking Christopher's pulse every few minutes, making sure he was still breathing. The twins eventually fell asleep curled against their father, their small bodies rising and falling with exhausted breaths. Monica covered them with her only decent blanket, the one her grandmother had crocheted before she died. It was nearly 3 a.m. when Christopher's eyes opened again. He stared at the unfamiliar ceiling, confusion clouding his features, before his gaze landed on Monica sitting in the chair across from him. You didn't call the police, he said hoarsely. Your son said not to. Said bad men would come. Monica crossed her arms. Want to tell me what's actually going on? Because I just dug a bullet out of a billionaire's shoulder in my living room, and I'd like to know if I should be looking for a new apartment in a different state. Something flickered in Christopher's eyes. Surprise, maybe, that she knew who he was. You looked in my wallet. You were unconscious and bleeding. I was looking for emergency contacts. She paused. Found your identity instead. Christopher tried to sit up and immediately gasped in pain, his hand flying to his bandaged shoulder. The twins stirred but didn't wake. How long was I out? 2 hours. You've lost a lot of blood. You should be in a hospital. Can't. His jaw clenched. They have people everywhere. Police, hospitals, courts. If I show up anywhere official, I'm dead. The twins are dead. Monica's blood ran cold. Who? Who has people everywhere? Christopher looked at her for a long moment, clearly calculating how much to tell this stranger who'd saved his life. My business partner, he said finally. Former business partner, Marcus Hale. The name meant nothing to Monica, but then again, she didn't exactly move in billionaire circles. Why does your former business partner want you dead? Because I found out he's been using Bennett Industries to launder money for some very dangerous people. When I told him I was going to the authorities, Christopher's voice cracked. He sent men to my house, my private estate. The twins and I barely got out. I thought we'd lost them in the city, but they found us again near the warehouse district. So you're not just rich, Monica said slowly. You're a rich man with a target on his back who just involved a waitress and her daughter in whatever mess you're running from. Christopher's expression shifted to something like guilt. I'm sorry. I had nowhere else to go. When you found us, I was trying to get to the Canadian border, but He looked down at his shoulder. I didn't think I'd make it. I still might not. You'll make it, Monica said firmly, surprising herself. But we need a plan. Those men, the ones who shot you, they saw your face. They know you're wounded. They'll be checking hospitals, clinics, anywhere you might go for help. which is why I can't go anywhere. Christopher's gaze was sharp despite his obvious pain. I know this is insane. I know I have no right to ask, but can we stay here? Just for a few days until I can figure out what to do? Monica laughed, a brittle sound. You want to hide out in my apartment, Mr. Bennett? I have a 6-year-old daughter who asks questions about everything. I have neighbors who notice when strange men appear. I have a landlord who's looking for any excuse to evict me because he wants to raise the rent. This is literally the worst safe house in the entire city. It's also the last place anyone would look for me, Christopher countered. Marcus knows my habits, my properties, my friends. He'd never think to look for me in... He trailed off, his eyes taking in the cramped apartment, the water stain on the ceiling, the furniture that had clearly seen better decades. In a dump? Monica finished coolly. You can say it. I live in a dump. I'm aware. I was going to say, in a place this far removed from my usual life. Christopher said quietly. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to insult you. You saved my life. You saved my children's lives. I need time to think, to plan, to heal enough to protect Austin and Brooklyn. Monica wanted to say no. Every practical instinct she had screamed at her to call the police, let them sort it out, and return to her simple, struggling life. But she looked at the twins sleeping peacefully for the first time in hours. Their small faces finally relaxed, and she thought of Haley. If someone were hunting her daughter, if she were desperate and wounded with nowhere to turn, wouldn't she hope someone would help? 3 days, she said finally. You can stay 3 days. That's when my next rent payment is due. And if my landlord sees you, we'll all be out on the street anyway. Relief flooded Christopher's face. Thank you. I'll pay you, of course. Whatever you need. I don't want your money. The words came out sharper than she intended. I'm not doing this for a reward. I'm doing it because those kids need their father alive. And right now, you're in no condition to protect them. Then what do you want? Christopher asked, studying her face with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. Monica thought about her overdue electric bill, her car that had died last month, Haley's school fees she couldn't afford, the dental work she'd been putting off for 2 years. She thought about all the things money could fix in her life. I want you gone in 3 days, she said instead. I want you to keep your head down and not bring any trouble to my door, and I want your word that if something happens, if those men find you here, you'll make sure my daughter stays safe. You have my word, Christopher said solemnly. On my life, your daughter won't be harmed because of me. They stared at each other in the dim light of her living room, this impossible pairing, a billionaire on the run and a waitress who'd stumbled into his nightmare. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the first gray light of dawn was creeping through the windows. Monica stood, her back aching from the long night. I need to sleep for 2 hours before my daughter wakes up. There's leftover pasta in the fridge if the twins get hungry. Don't answer the door. Don't make any phone calls. And if you bleed on anything else, you're cleaning it yourself. A ghost of a smile touched Christopher's lips. Yes, ma'am. As Monica headed to her bedroom, she paused in the doorway. Mr. Bennett? Those men who shot you, how dangerous are they really? Christopher's smile faded. They killed my head of security without hesitation. A man I'd known for 15 years, who had a wife and 3 kids. They shot me while I was holding my children. His gray eyes met hers, hard as stone. They're dangerous enough that if they find us here, none of us will survive the night. Monica nodded slowly and closed her door. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, and wondered what she'd just gotten herself into. In the living room, a billionaire slept on her couch with his twin children. Men with guns were looking for them. And somehow, Monica Pierce, who could barely afford groceries, had become the only thing standing between Christopher Bennett and whoever wanted him dead. 3 days, she reminded herself. Just 3 days. What could possibly go wrong in 3 days? The next morning arrived too soon, announced by Haley's cheerful voice calling from the hallway. Mommy, Mrs. Kowalski said you had an adventure last night. Monica bolted upright, her heart hammering. She'd slept maybe 90 minutes, and her body felt like it had been hit by a truck. She stumbled out of bed and intercepted Haley before she could burst into the living room. Hey, baby, Monica said, forcing brightness into her voice. Listen, We have some guests staying with us for a few days. Haley's eyes went wide with excitement. Guests? We never have guests. I know. But these are special guests who need our help. There's a man who got hurt and his 2 little kids. They're about your age, actually. I need you to be very grown up about this, okay? Very quiet and very careful. What happened to the man? Haley asked, her natural curiosity impossible to contain. Monica had anticipated this question during her brief, restless sleep. He was in a car accident. He's recovering, so we need to let him rest. Can you do that for Mommy? Haley nodded solemnly, and Monica led her into the living room. Christopher was awake, sitting up carefully on the couch with his good arm around the twins. In the morning light, he looked even worse than he had last night, pale, drawn, with dark circles under his eyes, but he managed a smile when he saw Haley. You must be Haley, he said warmly. Your mom told me about you. I'm Christopher, and these are my kids, Austin and Brooklyn. The twins peered shyly at Haley, who stared back with open fascination. You look exactly the same, she announced to Austin and Brooklyn. That's so cool. Brooklyn giggled, the first sound of joy Monica had heard from either child. Within minutes, the 3 kids were sitting on the floor playing with Haley's modest collection of toys, their voices low but animated. Monica caught Christopher watching them with an expression of profound relief. They haven't played like that in weeks, he said quietly. Not since the threats started. Monica poured him a glass of water and found some crackers, the closest thing to invalid food she had in her cupboards. You need to eat something. Keep your strength up. Yes, nurse, Christopher said with a hint of humor, then winced as he shifted position. The bandage on his shoulder had bled through slightly during the night. Monica changed it while the children were distracted, her hands steadier now in the daylight. Christopher's shoulder looked better than she'd expected. No signs of infection yet, though she knew that could change quickly. She'd stolen antibiotics from the diner's first aid kit on her way out last night, the kind they kept for kitchen burns. It wasn't much, but it was something. You should have been a doctor, Christopher observed as she worked. Yeah, well, medical school costs money, Monica said flatly. Some of us have to work for a living instead of dreaming. I worked for my success, Christopher said, an edge creeping into his voice. I wasn't born into money. My father was a construction worker. I put myself through college working 3 jobs. Monica paused, surprised. The media always portrayed Bennett as some kind of trust fund prince. I didn't know that. Most people don't. It's not the story they want to hear. Christopher watched his children play. I built Bennett Industries from nothing. 20 years of 16-hour days, missed holidays, sacrificed relationships. And now, Marcus Hale wants to destroy it all because I won't let him turn my company into a criminal enterprise. Tell me about Hale, Monica said, settling into her chair with her own cup of coffee. Instant, the only kind she could afford. If I'm risking my life here, I deserve to know who I'm hiding you from. Christopher was quiet for a moment, organizing his thoughts. Marcus came on as a partner 5 years ago. He had connections, capital, and vision. We expanded internationally, broke into new markets. The company tripled in value. I thought he was the best thing that ever happened to Bennett Industries. When did you realize something was wrong? 6 months ago. Small things at first. Unusual wire transfers, meetings I wasn't invited to, projects that didn't quite add up. I started investigating quietly. Christopher's jaw tightened. Turns out Marcus has been using our overseas developments to launder money for a crime syndicate. Hundreds of millions of dollars, flowing through shell companies, fake contractors, phantom properties, all hidden in legitimate business dealings. Monica's coffee suddenly tasted bitter. And when you confronted him, he smiled and offered me a cut. Said I'd been useful in making it all look legitimate, and I could either join him properly or... Christopher trailed off, his eyes distant. He showed me photographs, my children at their private school, my housekeeper doing grocery shopping, my head of security's kids at soccer practice. He didn't have to say the words. The threat was clear. But you didn't back down. I couldn't. My wife. Christopher's voice caught. Caroline died 2 years ago. Cancer. Before she passed, she made me promise that I'd always do the right thing. that I'd be someone our children could be proud of. How could I look at Austin and Brooklyn and tell them their father chose money over morality? Monica found herself grudgingly respecting this man. So you went to the authorities? I compiled evidence, spreadsheets, emails, recorded conversations. I had everything I needed to bring Marcus down. I was supposed to meet with federal investigators yesterday. He laughed bitterly. Obviously, Marcus found out. He moved first. The pieces were clicking together in Monica's mind. The attack at your house, that was him trying to stop you before you could talk. And to send a message to anyone else who might think about betraying him. If he can kill Christopher Bennett in his own home, he's untouchable. Christopher leaned back carefully. The evidence is on a secure drive. I hid it before we fled. Once I'm healed enough to travel, I can retrieve it and find another way to get it to the authorities. Or, Monica said slowly, we could get it now. Christopher looked at her sharply. Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. You just said Marcus knows all your usual moves. He'll be watching for you. But he doesn't know me. Monica felt the idea taking shape even as she spoke. Where is it hidden? In my office at Bennett Industries headquarters. In a false compartment in my desk that only I know about. And Marcus will be watching your office. Every second of every day. Christopher shook his head firmly. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I can't ask you to walk into that building. If something went wrong, nothing will go wrong because nobody knows who I am, Monica interrupted. I'm nobody. I'm invisible. That's the advantage of being poor, Mr. Bennett. Rich people don't actually see us. She could see him considering it, running calculations in his mind. Even if you could get into the building, you'd need access to my private office. Security codes, biometric scanners. Can you get me temporary credentials? Some kind of vendor pass or cleaning crew authorization? Christopher was quiet for a long moment. I have a friend, Daniel Richardson. He runs operations for the building. We went to college together. He's one of the few people Marcus wouldn't have gotten to because Daniel has nothing to do with the business side. If I could contact him. No phones, Monica said immediately. You said Marcus has people everywhere. Any call you make could be traced. Daniel plays chess at Morrison Park every Saturday afternoon. Always has, for years. It's his thinking time. Christopher glanced at the window, where weak sunlight struggled through the clouds. Today is Saturday. Monica followed his gaze. So I go to the park, find Daniel, and deliver a message. It's still too risky. Everything about this situation is risky, Monica countered. But sitting here waiting for Marcus to find us is a guarantee of failure. At least this way, we're being proactive. Christopher studied her face, and Monica could see the moment he made his decision. If you're going to do this, you need to understand what you're walking into. Marcus isn't just dangerous, he's smart, ruthless. If he even suspects you're connected to me, he won't. I'm a waitress who's going to the park with her daughter on a Saturday morning. Nothing suspicious about that. Monica stood, her mind already racing through the logistics. Tell me what Daniel looks like and exactly what message I should give him. For the next hour, Christopher briefed her on every detail. Daniel's appearance, his habits, the specific phrases to use that would convince him the message was really from Christopher. Monica listened carefully, committing everything to memory. She couldn't write anything down, too risky if something went wrong. There's one more thing, Christopher said as she prepared to leave. He pulled a ring from his finger, a simple gold band with an inscription inside. Show him this. It was my father's. Daniel will recognize it. Monica took the ring, feeling the weight of trust that came with it. I'll be back in 2 hours. Monica. Christopher caught her hand. Thank you. I know I have no right to ask this of you. And I know you said you don't want money, but when this is over, if we survive this, I will find a way to repay you properly. Just focus on staying alive, Monica said, and keep those kids safe. That's payment enough. She left him on the couch with the 3 children, who'd moved on to coloring with Haley's worn crayons. The domestic scene looked so normal, so peaceful, that it was easy to forget armed men were hunting them. Morrison Park was a 20-minute bus ride away, located in the financial district where glass towers scraped the sky and people in $1,000 suits sipped $7 coffee. Monica felt conspicuous in her threadbare jacket and discount store jeans. but she kept her head down and held Haley's hand tight. She found Daniel Richardson exactly where Christopher said he'd be, at the stone chess tables near the fountain, hunched over a game against himself. He was in his 40s, black, with graying temples and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He looked like someone's favorite professor, not the operations manager for a building full of secrets. Monica approached slowly, her heart pounding. This was it. The moment she either became an active participant in this dangerous game or could still walk away. She thought of Christopher bleeding on her couch, of Austin and Brooklyn's terrified faces, of the promise she'd made. She sat down across from Daniel and moved a chess piece at random. He looked up, startled, ready to politely tell this stranger he wasn't looking for a game. Then Monica opened her hand and showed him the ring. Daniel's eyes went wide. His gaze shot to Monica's face, searching, questioning. She leaned forward and whispered the exact phrase Christopher had given her. "The king is in check, but the game isn't over." Daniel's hand trembled as he reached for the ring. "Where is he?" he breathed. "Everyone thinks." Marcus announced that Christopher is taking emergency leave for a family matter. There are rumors about a breakdown, about drug problems. "People are starting to believe he's safe," Monica interrupted quietly. "For now. But he needs your help." Around them, the park continued its normal Saturday rhythm. Joggers passed. Children played. Nobody paid attention to a waitress and an operations manager having a quiet conversation over a chessboard. And that invisibility, Monica realized, might be the only thing that saved them all. Daniel Richardson proved to be exactly the ally Christopher believed he'd be. Within an hour of their park meeting, Monica had a cleaning crew uniform, a fake ID badge, and detailed instructions on how to access Christopher's office. Daniel had been horrified to learn about the attempt on Christopher's life, but he hadn't hesitated to help. "Marcus Hale has been acting strange all week," Daniel had told her, his voice low. "Jumpy, aggressive. He's had private security sweeping the building twice a day. Now I know why." The plan was simple, which Monica knew from experience usually meant it would go wrong in complicated ways. She would enter Bennett Industries at 6 a.m. Monday morning as part of the early cleaning crew. Daniel had arranged for the regular cleaner to call in sick. Monica would have a 30-minute window to access Christopher's office, retrieve the evidence, and get out before the executive floor became active. She spent Sunday preparing, memorizing the building layout Daniel had sketched, practicing the security codes until she could recite them in her sleep. Christopher coached her from the couch, his color gradually improving as the antibiotics worked and his body began to heal. The twins and Haley had become inseparable, creating elaborate games with kitchen utensils and couch cushions. "You don't have to do this," Christopher said for the 100th time as Sunday evening approached. "I could wait another week, go myself." "You can barely stand without getting dizzy," Monica pointed out. "And Marcus will be watching for you. I'm still your best option." "My only option," Christopher corrected quietly, "and I hate that I've put you in this position." Monica studied him in the lamplight. Over the past 2 days, she'd learned things about Christopher Bennett that the Forbes article had never mentioned. He did voices when he read bedtime stories to the twins. He remembered the names of every person who'd ever worked for him. He cried when he talked about his late wife, unashamed of his grief. He was nothing like the cold corporate titan she'd imagined billionaires to be. "Why did you choose to tell the truth?" she asked suddenly. "You could have taken the money, looked the other way. Nobody would have known." Christopher was quiet for a moment, watching his children sleep. "When Caroline was dying, she asked me what kind of world our children would grow up in. I promised her I'd do everything in my power to make it a better one." He looked at Monica. "I can't teach Austin and Brooklyn that integrity matters if I don't live it myself, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Monica thought about her own daughter, about the lessons she was teaching through her actions. By helping Christopher, was she teaching Haley to be brave and compassionate? Or was she teaching her that risking everything for strangers was acceptable? She didn't have an answer. She only knew she couldn't turn away now. Monday morning arrived cold and gray. Monica kissed a sleepy Haley goodbye, extracted a promise from Christopher to keep all 3 children quiet and safe, and headed into the pre-dawn darkness. The cleaning uniform felt foreign on her body. but the fake badge Daniel had created looked convincingly real. Bennett Industries headquarters was a monument to wealth and power, all steel and glass reaching 40 stories into the sky. Monica entered through the service entrance, nodding to the security guard who barely glanced at her badge. Just as she'd predicted, invisible. The cleaning supervisor assigned her to the executive floor, and Monica's heart hammered as she pushed her cart into the elevator. 37th floor. Christopher's office was at the end of the hall, overlooking the city he'd helped build. The space was everything she'd expected. Massive desk, leather chairs, wall-to-wall windows with a view that probably cost more than her annual salary. But there was also a child's drawing stuck to the filing cabinet, a photo of Caroline on the bookshelf, and a coffee mug that read, "World's Okayest Dad." Monica worked quickly, her hands shaking as she input the security code to Christopher's private safe, then used the additional code for the false compartment in his desk drawer. The small drive was there, exactly where he'd said it would be. Innocuous, and containing enough evidence to destroy Marcus Hale's empire. She'd just slipped it into her pocket when she heard voices in the hallway. Checking all the offices personally. I don't care what the security logs say. Marcus Hale. Monica recognized his voice from news interviews. Smooth, confident, and getting closer. She dove behind the desk, her mind racing. The door was already opening. She was trapped. "Mr. Hale, this really isn't necessary," another voice protested. "The cleaning crew is thoroughly vetted." "Bennett is alive," Marcus snapped. "I know he is. That body they found in the warehouse wasn't him, which means he's out there somewhere, wounded and desperate. He'll try to get to this evidence eventually." Monica's breath caught. They'd found a body? Had Marcus killed someone else to cover his tracks? "Sir, even if he wanted to, Bennett can't access the building. Every camera, every scanner. We'd know the second he stepped foot in here. He's smart enough to send someone else." Marcus's footsteps entered the office, and through the gap under the desk, Monica could see his expensive Italian shoes. Someone we wouldn't suspect, someone invisible. The shoes moved closer to the desk. Monica pressed herself against the wood, barely breathing. If he looked down, if he opened the drawer and found the compartment disturbed. "Mr. Hale," a woman's voice called from the hallway. "Sir, you have an urgent call. It's the Singapore investors." Marcus cursed under his breath. "This conversation isn't over," he told his companion. "I want a full audit of everyone who's been in this building in the past 72 hours. Names, backgrounds, everything." His shoes retreated. The door closed. Monica remained frozen for 5 full minutes before she dared to move. Getting out of the building was a nightmare. Her hands shook so badly she could barely push the cleaning cart. Every security guard looked suspicious. Every camera felt like it was focused directly on her. But she kept her head down, maintained her pace, and walked out the service entrance like she belonged there. She was 3 blocks away when she finally allowed herself to run. Christopher was on his feet when she burst into the apartment, despite doctor's orders. "Did you get it?" he demanded. Monica pulled the drive from her pocket, and the relief on his face was profound. "You're incredible," he breathed. "Absolutely incredible." Marcus was there, Monica said, her adrenaline still pumping. "He knows you're alive. He's looking for anyone who might help you." Christopher's expression darkened. "Then we need to move fast. Daniel is arranging a meeting with federal investigators tomorrow morning. Neutral location, maximum security. Once I hand over this evidence, we'll all be safe," Monica finished. She wanted to believe it. That night, Monica couldn't sleep. She lay in bed listening to the sounds of her apartment, the twins' quiet breathing from the living room, Haley's soft snores from her bedroom, Christopher's occasional movements as he kept watch. Somewhere in the city, Marcus Hale was searching for them. And here they all were, crowded into her tiny apartment like fish in a barrel, but they'd made it this far. One more day. Just one more day. Tuesday morning, Daniel Richardson arrived in an unmarked car. The drive to the federal building was tense and silent, Christopher holding the evidence drive like it was the most precious thing in the world. Monica had insisted on coming, refusing to let him face this alone. Mrs. Kowalski was watching all 3 children, armed with Monica's pepper spray and strict instructions to call 911 at the first sign of trouble. The federal agents were exactly what Monica expected: serious, professional, skeptical. But as they reviewed Christopher's evidence, their expressions changed. Phone calls were made. More agents arrived. Within 3 hours, warrants were being issued for Marcus Hale's arrest. "You're a brave man, Mr. Bennett," the lead investigator said. "This evidence is airtight. Hale's empire is finished." Christopher slumped in his chair, the weight of the past week finally catching up to him. "My children," he said hoarsely. "I need protection for my children." "Already arranged. We'll have agents watching them 24/7 until Hale and his associates are in custody." Monica expected to feel relief. Instead, she felt strangely hollow. It was over. Christopher would return to his mansion, his company, his billion-dollar life. She would go back to her apartment, her diner shifts, her struggle to make ends meet. Their lives had intersected for one impossible week, and now they would diverge again like they were always meant to. "Monica." Christopher touched her arm gently. "Can we talk?" Privately, they stepped into an empty conference room. Through the window, Monica could see the city spreading out below them, full of people living their ordinary lives, unaware that a criminal empire had just fallen. "I owe you everything," Christopher said quietly. "My life, my children's lives. Justice for Caroline's memory. There's no way to adequately repay." "I told you I don't want your money," Monica interrupted. "I know, but I want to give you something anyway. Not as payment, as thanks." Christopher pulled out his phone, which the agents had just returned to him. "I've been thinking about what you said. About being invisible. About people like me not seeing people like you." He showed her the screen. Monica stared at the document displayed there, not understanding at first. Then the numbers registered, and her knees went weak. "This is a college scholarship fund," Christopher explained. "For Haley. Full tuition, room and board, any school she wants. And this," he swiped to another document, "is a trust that will provide you with a living wage while you go back to school yourself. If you want to. No strings attached. Just a chance to dream again." Tears blurred Monica's vision. "Christopher, I can't." "You can. You save my children. Let me help yours." His gray eyes were earnest. "And there's something else. Bennett Industries needs a new VP of operations. Daniel's retiring next year. The position requires someone with integrity, courage, and the ability to see things others miss. I can't think of anyone more qualified than you." Monica laughed through her tears. "I'm a waitress. I barely finished high school. So I'll pay for you to get your degree. Business management, whatever you want. Take classes at night while working as my executive assistant. Learn the company from the ground up, the way I did." Christopher smiled. "I built Bennett Industries on the principle that talent matters more than pedigree. Help me prove that's still true." "Why?" Monica whispered. "Why would you do all this?" Christopher was quiet for a moment. "Because you saw me bleeding in an alley holding my children, and you didn't walk away. You risked everything. Your safety, your daughter's safety, your home, for strangers. That's not something money can buy. That's character. And character is exactly what I need, as I rebuild my company into something that makes my wife proud." Monica thought about her life, the endless shifts, the overdue bills, the constant fear that one emergency would destroy everything. She thought about Haley growing up with opportunities Monica never had. She thought about learning, growing, becoming someone her daughter could be proud of. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "Good," Christopher said with a smile. "That means you understand what you're taking on. But I've seen you face down armed criminals and infiltrate a corporate headquarters. I think you can handle a business degree." 6 months later, Monica stood in the lobby of Bennett Industries, but this time she wasn't wearing a cleaning uniform. Her new suit, modest but professional, felt strange after years of diner uniforms. Her nameplate on the executive assistant's desk still seemed surreal. Christopher's shoulder had healed completely. Marcus Hale and 14 associates were awaiting trial. The scandal had rocked the business world. But Bennett Industries had survived, emerging stronger and more transparent than ever. "Ready for your first day?" Christopher asked, appearing at her elbow with 2 cups of coffee. Real coffee, not the instant stuff she used to drink. "Absolutely terrified," Monica admitted. "Good answer." He smiled warmly. Austin and Brooklyn asked if Haley could come to their birthday party this weekend. "Something about a promised treasure hunt." "She's already planning her outfit," Monica said, remembering her daughter's excitement. The 3 children had remained close, and seeing Haley play with kids who didn't judge her for her worn clothes or small apartment had been its own kind of healing. "And you?" Christopher asked, a new note in his voice. "What are you planning?" Monica met his gray eyes and saw something there beyond gratitude, beyond friendship. Over the past months, as she'd helped him rebuild his life, and he'd helped her transform hers, something had shifted between them. Late-night conversations while reviewing contracts, shared laughter over the twins' antics, quiet moments when their hands brushed and neither pulled away. "I'm planning to take things one day at a time," Monica said softly, "and see where this journey leads." "Sounds like a good plan," Christopher agreed. "Though I should warn you, I've gotten attached to having you around. You might find yourself stuck with us Bennetts." "Stuck with a billionaire and his adorable twins?" "Yeah, I think I can live with that," Monica grinned. "Though fair warning, I still expect you to do voices when you read bedtime stories." Christopher laughed, and the sound filled the lobby, rich and genuine. "Deal, but only if you promise to keep calling me out when I'm being an oblivious rich guy." "That's basically my job description now," Monica pointed out. As they walked toward the elevator together, Monica caught their reflection in the glass, a waitress-turned-executive and a billionaire who'd learned that sometimes the most valuable things in life couldn't be bought. Behind them, through the lobby windows, the city stretched out full of possibility. She'd found him shot and holding his twins in a dark alley, never knowing he was the billionaire boss. But she'd seen something more important than his bank account. She'd seen a father desperate to protect his children, a man willing to sacrifice everything for what was right. And in saving him, she'd somehow saved herself. The elevator doors opened, and together they stepped inside, ready to face whatever came next. Because the best stories, Monica had learned, weren't about where you started or how much money you had. They were about who you chose to be when everything was on the line, and who stood beside you when the world got dark. And Monica Pierce had chosen to be someone who didn't walk away, someone who helped, someone who believed that courage mattered more than circumstance. It was, she reflected, as the elevator rose toward their new beginning, the best choice she'd ever made.